Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to today's Kyle Seraphin show, and it is Tuesday, December the 16th. I got to tell you guys, I have a dream that one day I'm going to wake up, or maybe I'll even go to bed, and I'll realize it before I close my eyes, and our FBI will be either disbanded or de-weaponized or set up in such a way that I won't have to think about it. Won't have to worry about them coming through the door of my house or screwing with one of my friends who works there because they're not there anymore. Or I won't see some information operations slop that's being just plopped on the plate and the platter of people that I otherwise would get along with. There's a lot of you out there that have decided to, I think, part ways with the non-thinking, instinctive tribal crowd that just goes, whatever Trump and his people say is for me. There's so many people that just have that instinct. And then, and I think that as time goes on and as people kind of consider it in light of the totality of it, they're like, they're making me eat this garbage and I don't want it. I'd like to just be a regular person with an independent mind that can make up my mind and not have to be told what my opinion is. And I think, even though this is a fantasy world, it could happen. They're pushing so hard. The mainstream media push, the Fox News sort of boomer, don't consider anything. Everybody on TV only tells you serious stuff. They're destroying their credibility and they don't necessarily realize the moment around them. And the moment has to do with this last 5 years where people have been lied to in meaningful ways, and it has directly affected their livelihood. It's affected their freedom, their safety, their ability to just not be connected. You know, a lot of us didn't spend all of our time poring over the news cycle to figure out what was coming up next or what might happen. But over the period of 2020 and 2021, I think that changed because the whimsical fancies of people in your state health departments or the insanity of mainstream media gaslighting that was pushing, new fake information at you. We had to be aware of it because you could be on the wrong side of some local ordinance that was just made up or some decree by your mayor or your governor decided that everybody had to wear a mask or that you had to walk on the right-hand side of the aisle and then the left-hand side of even and odd aisles at your supermarket. And somebody might try to drag you out in handcuffs if you weren't paying attention. So a lot of people who didn't otherwise want to be connected to this information, they started paying attention. And maybe some people went back to sleep. But I don't think you can afford to be asleep. I don't think you can afford to not be aware or cognizant of the information op that surrounds all of us. And it comes through public relations campaigns. It comes through the veil of legitimate media sources. And I'll make this argument to you because I know people look at what I do as far as the way that we cover things. And I had one person a long time ago complain. I think this person has probably since been re-educated and recorrected their mind. But I cover almost exclusively left-leaning sources because if I want to see the truth about the people that I have high expectations for, that otherwise might be ideologically aligned with me, I want to know what their critics say. It's far better to find out what kind of criticism you have. I almost exclusively go to negative commentary. I want to find out what are the negative people say. If you agree with me, that's great. I appreciate you. There's a lot of you out there. You leave comments and they're positive. Some of you leave comments that are funny. That's what I'm really there for. But the people that don't agree with me are where I want to find the sticking point. Because if everybody agrees, it's like, well, what are we even talking about? So let's go find the dissent. And dissent is a really critical part of what the left would call our democracy, right? The voices that don't agree with us. But dissent also tells us where we might be wrong, where we should reevaluate. And if we can't critically assess, like, oh man, did I have this correct? Should I look at this position and see it in a more full manner, in a more full light? I think we should. I think if you don't open yourself up to scrutiny, if you don't open your mind up to challenging whatever your cognitive biases are, then you're screwed. Then you're going to fall for whatever the information op, the slop, the PR campaign, the psyop, whatever you want to call it. You're going to fall for that because it's designed for you, the non-critical thinker, if you just say, how would these people lie to me? And we did an entire program about parasocial relationships, and I think that's going to come into today's program a little bit. Parasocial relationships are relationships that are exclusively one-sided with a figure in either the media or in the public sphere that doesn't even know you exist. And I have some too, I'm sure. But I kind of know, and I hope you do too, that people in the public space, whether they be on social media or on real media, or whether they be in television, or whether they're just like an actor, like, does Robert De Niro really love you? You know, maybe a bad example. Does Ben Stiller really get you? Would Chris Pratt want to hang out with you? Would he be like that guy that he'd really be your buddy if you guys got together? Like, if you have those kind of thoughts, come on now. You don't even get along with all the people you work with. You don't even get along with all the people in your family that know you really well. So these parasocial relationships are the things that make you expect that there is a one-sided reciprocity between someone that you've never met and owes you nothing and wouldn't know you if you walked up and spoke to them. You think that there's some sort of transactional understanding between the two of you. And I see it all the time. Today, we're going to talk about Dan Bongino a little bit because he popped up on my feed while I was trying to get my exercise in. Here I am pedaling on my bike, getting my heart rate up, and I just see like news stories inbound. Dan Bongino might be leaving his thing, might be leaving. And so now I'm seeing this flood of Dan Bongino's my guy. Like, I trust Dan again. People who've never met Dan, people who don't know anything about Dan, people who Dan has never betrayed, people who have never had a promise made directly to them in an explicit format about a very, very serious topic, like, I don't know, your safety and your survival. I've had that conversation with Dan Bongino. I had a man tell me that my story would not fall apart because he wouldn't let it, because that's what he was going to make as a commitment. And I was going to change my entire life. If you guys don't know how this works, I sat out in the middle of the desert in New Mexico, in my backyard, on a house that I was listing to sell because I didn't have a job at the FBI anymore, and I didn't know what was coming next. And I had a man tell me that you can come forward and speak on my podcast, and I need you, and America needs you, and this voice is important. They need to put this face, apparently, for better or for worse, aging though it may be, gray hairs though they creep into the beard. This face was necessary because everybody needed to know that there was a human being with eyes and a mouth and a nose and a personality and a voice behind FBI whistleblowers who are going to members of Congress. So I took him at his word. I really did. And that was overtly betrayed. And I don't sit and like worry about this kind of stuff anymore. I just can't. There's too many things that are happening every day. But it's really clear to me that I'm not going to forget when somebody betrays you. If somebody gives you their word and goes back on it, like, you'd be a fool to not keep that in your back pocket and remember, when this person says something, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. It's not worth the airwaves that it was broadcast across. So that's my take on this. And I think it's relevant because, again, we're now seeing, God forbid, I've never told you that before, have I? I've never come out and said that this guy was short-lived for that job because he was never a good fit. I've never told you that he didn't have the qualifications to be there, right? Of course I did. I'm being sarcastic here. So we're going to talk about the potential moving of the MAGA podcasters out of the FBI. I don't know what that means next, but I have some suspicions. A couple other stories that are super important, which is that they've been screwing up in Rhode Island. It looks really bad. At the very least, it's a bad PR situation. And so the FBI does what the FBI does. They've announced that they foiled a terror plot. Guys, you can set your freaking watch by this. I'm bored of making predictions that they're going to do this at this point. But they set they foiled a terror plot in Los Angeles, so we'll get into that. I have the complaint in front of me, which is, it's exactly what you expect. If you've been part of this program, you know it's the playbook. We're going to go into the new sort of influence op that's going on because what would make you think that somebody is not the thing that they're claiming in a lawsuit other than going out and talking to a legitimate influence operation person, the former spokesperson for Mike Pence and a former spokesperson for DHS, and someone who's been around the Trump administration since the first admin. This is, of course, Katie Miller, who married Stephen Miller, who has an awful lot of tie to intelligence, the intelligence apparatus. She's on Donald Trump's intelligence advisory board. So for a girl that has nothing to do with anything intelligence related, Alexis Wilkins, who's suing me for $5 million, sure has an awful lot of connections to the intelligence world in the United States government. Despite being a country music sensation, she's dating an intelligence agency head, and she's sitting down with somebody who I legitimately would call like part of the intelligence community. If you're part of Donald Trump's advisory board. So we'll get into that a little bit too. And then what else we got? Mass shootings and what they mean broadly, global, etc. There's a push right now, obviously coming from the political left, to say guns are bad, okay, and we got to get rid of them. So that's where we're going to go. And let's start with my friends over at Silent. This actually plays in really well, because if you're worried about the sort of the media narratives and you don't trust big tech or government or corporate data brokers or anybody else for that matter, if you just don't trust people, which is where I sit, maybe you want to tie up your digital footprint a little bit, at least when you choose to. Maybe you want to go off grid on occasion. You can do that with my friends over at Silent. It's slnt.com/Kyle. That's silentnovowels.com/Kyle. You'll save 15% on qualified orders. You get free shipping as well on a lot of them. This is the one that we use every single day here on the show. So if you guys have seen this before, I should turn it right side up. It says Silent right down here. It's really well made. It's got really good magnets, and all you literally do is put your phone inside of it, and away goes all of the radio frequency. That's the RF communications. That's cellular and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and GPS and RFID and near field communications and all kinds of other things that your phones are starting to put out there. With no signal, there's no tracking, there's no remote access, there's no breadcrumbs. This is the technology that our friends over in the special operations world use. They use it for sensitive site exploitation if they want to hold on to something and make sure nobody wipes it from remote. It's also something I use as an FBI agent, except I used to use like tinfoil and an ammo can. I really did, because there were not good products, at least not that the government would buy at that time. Silent stepped up into that gap. They make stuff in the military for various different law enforcement agencies, and you too can buy the same stuff they're using. It's not the cheapest product because it actually works. If you want the cheap stuff, go to Chinesium and get disappointed when it actually leaks and fails. I've leak tested this the same way we did in the Bureau. I've driven literally hundreds of miles moving from different cell phone towers and pinging at different directions and moving it around inside my cab of my vehicle. This is a great way to test these things, and it survived with living colors, or with flying colors rather. It did a great job and didn't leak at all. So that's a big deal. If you guys want something that works, check it out. Cut down your digital footprint, get some silence in your life, go off the grid, join your family for a few minutes, put away the psyop and the information op, and just be a regular person like we used to. Check them out. Link in the show description, silent.com/KYLE. Today's program begins in more depth right now. So sometimes my wife gives me a hard time. She's like, you kind of went long in the beginning, you know? And I go, yeah, sometimes I do. But I do feel like that's part of the program. You guys, first of all, that's just my commentary on what's going on in the world. And more importantly, I think it sets up where we're going to go with the program. In light details, I'm going to tell you where we're going. So that's what the old rule was. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them at the end. I do a little bit less of that than, because I assume a little bit of capability of my audience. So forgive me that I don't do the classic media move, which is I'm going to basically spoon feed you everything. I don't want to do that. I want to assume that I'm talking to people that have an intellect, that have a penetrating sort of curiosity. And some of this stuff is things you're going to have to go and do on your own. You're going to have to go look on your own to find out, is there more to this story? We only have a few minutes here. I mean, there's hours of this. So some of these are going to pique your fancy and you're going to want to read more about it. This story is pretty straightforward, though. This is coming from the New York Sun. Daniel Edward Rosen is writing here, and the headline, Dan Bongino's office is empty and his chief of staff has moved on. Ex-podcaster may be gone come January 2026, say FBI insiders. All right. Well, we've been talking about this as a real possibility for a while. And when the staff starts leaving, it's a pretty good indication the job is about to be refilled by somebody new. That actually might be the single biggest thing. An empty office, I don't know. When your chief of staff takes another job inside the Bureau, it's probably a good indication we're doing something else. Can we trust this article? Look at this. Sometimes I see stuff on the chat off the corner, and I want to address it. Can we trust it? Maybe. I think we should be skeptical at all times. I think we should not let our confirmation bias fill us in, where we say, oh, well, we assume that this was going to happen. So now that we hear about it, of course it's happening. But The Sun has been pretty critical. There have been other articles as well. And I will tell you why I think this is actually very likely. Because the corroborating evidence from both sides pushes it out. And let's just kind of tease that ahead. Bongino went on or gave information to Fox News as well. And when that happens, here's the Fox News article for your awareness. Okay, let me frame it on the screen nicely. Deputy Director Dan Bongino to decide about his future at the Bureau in the coming weeks, sources say. That's Fox. That's the official mouthpiece, I would say, of this particular part of the administration. So if Fox News is going to run the story, and it's not the favorite outlets of Dan Bongino or Kash Patel when it comes to this stuff, it's a pretty good indicator that the story has some accuracy, and I think it has legs. So, as they say. Let me read a little bit of it. The brief and tumultuous tenure of MAGA podcaster turned FBI Deputy Director Daniel Bongino. We never call him Daniel unless we're mad at him, right? Like his mom when she was upset or disappointed. It may be coming to an end soon with his office largely empty, the chief of staff assuming a new role in Baltimore, The Sun has learned. While Mr. Bongino, 51, was in his Washington office on Friday, he's believed to inform several special agents in charge of the FBI's 56 field offices that he would be soon leaving his role. His Washington office was empty on Friday evening. Well, that would be the case for most feds, if you guys know. FBI spokesperson didn't return questions from The Sun, and his departure, which has been rumored in recent weeks, may have been put into motion. In November, his chief of staff, a guy named Jimmy Paul, was named the special agent in charge of the Baltimore field office after he served the role with Dan Bongino only 9 months. And that is according to his LinkedIn page. Mr. Paul is a 17-year veteran of the FBI. He was the first ever Indian American to hold that role. That's kind of funny. According to social media posts from the fraternal organization American Malali, I don't even know what this word is. Malali Law Enforcement United. Never even heard of this thing. But anyway, they found some group of things to talk about it. And there you go. So if his chief of staff has moved on, there's a good indication that, in fact, he may be going. Now, Bongino has been posting tough talk, protect the homeland, crush violent crime, all this other nonsense. Dan Bongino has been in the role of FBI Deputy Director for 9 months, which, for those of you who've ever done like a long-term TDY, many of you have temporarily served in jobs within your own job for longer than Bongino's been there. It's regular that people from the FBI spend 18 months at TDYs, temporary duty assignments, to the FBI's headquarters building. Legitimately, there's probably a third of the people in senior management at the Bureau who could easily say, I have done jobs temporarily for longer than Dan Bongino has spent in that role. And I do think that's a little bit embarrassing. And I also don't know why he thinks that we should trust him. I really don't, because as you just heard, a guy who's been in the FBI for 17 years, who stepped up to be his chief of staff and is now going to be in senior management in Baltimore. Well, you think he just got into management when Patel and Bongino showed up? No, he was in the feeder program. The way that the org chart works, it's worth knowing, is that people work cases at a GS 13 pay grade. It doesn't really matter, but 13 is the number of the tenured agent after 5 years. All right. And after 5 years, you can start working without anybody else looking into you. And they give you the full pay for the job. And a 1310, so every pay grade also has individual steps in it, 1 through 10. And a 1310 is considered your most senior case agent, brick agent, the guy on the ground, woman on the ground doing the actual casework. Above that is a 14. The 14s are the supervisors, various different little steps in there. 15 is a supervisor, second line supervisor, right? And then you get off that GS scale where you're no longer making sort of a published pay rate. You move into a different published pay rate called the senior executive service. That's the senior management level. These people we often will talk about on this program being sort of deep state because they've been there for a while and they've obviously wanted to advance off the GS scale. And they are no longer connected to anything related to individual cases. These people are policy, they are political actors oftentimes inside the Bureau, like whatever Bureau politics are. And this is the case for every agency. I'm talking specifically about the FBI because I work there, but every federal agency has this. Now, if only somebody had told us that we shouldn't trust this managerial core. If only somebody had gone out there, put it on record and said, you cannot have faith in an organization that doesn't clean up the management. Has someone ever said that?
Do not trust the FBI and do not trust the Secret Service either or any of these government entities until there is a full change in management.
What? A full change in management, you say? How far down would that go? If you asked me, it would go down to the GF-15s. Those are the people that are second level managers. They are the managers of managers, and that's when you start getting into that middle management BS. Did they do that? Did they follow the plan that we had and we didn't ask for credit? The guys who lost their jobs in that agency, who have the most vested interest in surviving and making sure that it is de-weaponized. My dream of waking up one day and not worrying about the FBI, which is a real dream. It's a pipe dream, I guess, but I had someone ask me last night while I'm sitting around we started a little bonfire in the backyard, or not a bonfire, whatever, like a fire pit fire. I'm sitting there with my kiddos. They're roasting marshmallows. They're wearing their jackets, even though it's not that cold outside. And we're throwing things into the flames. And I get an email, media request. Mr. Seraphin, could you give me a read on Director Patel's job or kind of an update at the 1 year mark, coming up on the 1 year mark of how he's been doing? And I said, Kash Patel, and that actually falls for Dan Bongino right now, had a generational opportunity. Can any of you think of a time going back into the archives? Those of you who remember Chris Wray, you remember Jim Comey, you remember Bob Mueller, maybe you remember Louis Freeh. Maybe you can go back that far. Maybe you remember all the way back there. Do you remember a time when you thought there might be a real big change, like promised change specifically focused in on federal law enforcement? It should have happened in the 90s. 100% it should have happened. After what happened in Waco, after what happened at Ruby Ridge, and obviously the FBI was not the initiating problem there, but had an awful effect. Went in and made it way worse. Did you think there might be a big change when we had Bill Clinton come in? Did you think there'd be a big change with George Bush? Was it ever like the FBI is a centerpiece of the problem? I cannot think of a time in my life when we have heard a drum banging from either side, left or right. This is a serious threat to the American people's civil liberties, and we've got to fix it. And we're going to put in a guy who's going to do it. Hence my advocacy of Kash Patel. It was based on, can we fix this thing? He had a generational opportunity and it was completely squandered. And they blew it beyond belief. It's the reason why I thought I did this. This is Dan Bongino speaking to me. Before I even knew it, someone had to send me this. And what did he say? He actually warned you of the same thing that he's been dealing with every single day and didn't fix. So he's going to leave as a failure, and it is non-negotiable. Did not fix it. And dropping a terror plot on a Monday afternoon is not going to be it. It's buried, by the way, on everything with the exception of Fox News. Everybody buried the story because it's such crap. I had multiple mainstream outlets reach out to me and go, have you seen this terror plot thing in Los Angeles? I go, no, but let me just put a guess on it. It involves a confidential human source, also known as an informant, as a setup person, and then it also involves undercover FBI agents moving the plot along. Am I right? And I got back a message from one of them. It said one of the meetings was 40% FBI paid personnel to further this domestic terrorism plot. That's how bullshit these things are. Anyway, I believed this guy. I think a lot of people did. I think some people should be disillusioned. It should be a gritty, like a gritty example that the status quo has its hooks into the system, and you don't get real change. And you certainly don't get it if you put people in who have what I would call FU money, and they don't even know when to say FU. This guy disappoints me, and probably should disappoint you too.
This is an agency that has betrayed you and that oath you took. And to this man or woman who stepped forward and disclosed this horrific information about the FBI targeting a legitimate conservative journalist, I applaud you. But another whistleblower has come forward. I applaud you as well, sir, ma'am, from the FBI, who came forward with this data. Folks, we are starting to see it. People are starting to take their constitutional oath seriously.
Nope, it was just me both times. Most of the stuff that Dan talked about and celebrated and thought, well, like, this is a turning point, it wasn't. Not at all. It was just a guy who had seen it from the beginning. My first couple days there, I went, this is not what I signed up for. And then I got to the field office and I went, I think what we're doing is unconstitutional. I don't want to be part of it. I'd like to go ahead and report this problem. If no one's going to do anything about it, I'm going to find my way into another job, which I did. And of course, it ended up that I tried to leave the political environment of Washington, D.C., and I moved out to New Mexico. Most of you don't even know where Las Cruces is on a map, but I do. And I moved out there to get away from it all, to not be involved in anything political. There should be the least political place in America, Las Cruces, New Mexico. And it turns out that's where I lost my job over politics, COVID politics, things that some of us are still suffering from, still worried about. I still have an ongoing lawsuit about it. And then the other piece of it is that the Biden administration was letting in Afghans writ large. I thought that was problematic. It was pretty obvious. We just had that happen. We just had members of our National Guard shot in the head while they were in Washington, D.C. How crazy is that? That a story that bothered me in September of 2021, and I went to my member of Congress less than a month later, that story is still ongoing. Isn't that crazy? And the parents at school board things, the fact that the FBI had prioritized as a domestic terror threat for political operations to just cave to the teachers union and the National Association of School Boards, that's crazy too. They didn't fix anything. They never have. And I'm not sure they ever even tried, or they even knew how to, because they got rid of the people who should have been helping them. What you're seeing on the screen is obviously the snowy winter of Rhode Island, where we just had a mass shooting, and that guy's still on the loose as of this morning. It's almost 9 o'clock here, so almost 10 o'clock on the East Coast. I haven't seen anything saying that they've got him. So there's an ongoing manhunt for an unknown fat guy who's got a sweatshirt and a beanie. Yep, it's about that good. I'll show you guys the videos of that in just a second. I just want to make sure you understand. That's what we're talking about. And what did they do also? Not a week ago. They celebrated an arrest in the pipe bomb case, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. It's coming up on 2 weeks now, which seems absolutely absurd. The New York Times covering this one, and I actually think this is pretty wild. As Bongino celebrates an arrest in the pipe bomb case, others on the right remain skeptical. I am one of those people quoted, so is Tom Massey. Now, for whatever it's worth, I don't always read things in the New York Times, but I think I'd be remiss to not share it with you because it's really funny, and also some of the adjectives and the way that they describe me, the descriptions are pretty gold. You guys have been calling me a nemesis and a boogeyman from some of the other pieces that we've read. And I'm just going to tell you, the reason why I'm telling you that is because people are listening to this program. People who have far wider audiences and have much bigger reach than I do. And it's a big responsibility to try to be honest about stuff and say where I'm coming from. But it's also really funny when people call you a scorched earth critic. So here's the New York Post story. You guys, I archived it here. It'll go over on kyleseraphin.com. You guys will find the link. If you want to find it over in the comment section, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on the comment section of Rumble. Make sure you guys are liking the video while I'm bringing those things up. And then scroll down and find the pinned comment where you will be able to read this for yourself. If you're so inclined, I'm going to read a couple pieces of it. Bongino, the official number 2 at the FBI. He's the co-number 2, if we're being real. Whatever the heck that means. He spent much of Thursday, this was going back to December 5th, basking in the praise of his role in catching a man charged with planting 2 pipe bombs near the Republican and Democratic Party headquarters on the eve of January the 6th. It was his 51st birthday. And the triumphal announcement that the case has been cracked through the force of will and re-examination of leads neglected by the Biden-era Bureau. Well, I'm trying to make you the point that there's only one bureau, and there's only ever been one bureau. And that guy told us not to trust the management unless it's been completely changed. And we have evidence based on his own chief of staff that they haven't done it.
Do not trust the FBI and do not trust the Secret Service either, or any of these government entities until there is a full change in management.
All right, fine. Well, he says previously I was paid in the past. He's talking to Sean Hannity for my opinions, and it's clear that one day I'll be back in that space. We expect it'll probably be next year, probably early next year, if we're being honest about it. He said there's zero doubt that the placement of the devices was a setup previously, and then now what? Now we have to do facts. You think that this FBI and that FBI and the FBI, as I would say, is incapable of embarrassing the living hell out of these guys? Somebody probably told Kash Patel that we have the subject in custody when they were going after Charlie Kirk's killer. Somebody told him that we've got the guy, so that somebody from most likely the FBI briefed the president that they've got the guy when Donald Trump went out and posted that the other day and got it wrong. Is there any accountability to this stuff? when you get it wrong over and over again, let me just read a little further into this, and then I'll show you that other people are catching on, that there's something of a problem of credibility. How many times can you tell your boss the wrong thing, put him out in public, or publicly claim victory for a non-victory before it comes back and bites you in the ass? And that's an open question, because the reason this stuff continues is because people keep tolerating it, because of that parasocial relationship with, I trust Dan, he's my guy, Cash is my dude. How that continues to happen is beyond me. But it does happen, which is to tell you that you, as the audience listening to this, you are in a minority. And I don't like to tell people like, hey, you're kind of exclusive, like you're the best. You might be the smartest audience per capita, like, because you're sitting here and you're at least critical. I regularly get pushback and say, I don't agree with you on this. That's fine. You shouldn't. It doesn't mean you're right. I think I'm right, but it doesn't mean I am. It just means I think I am. And I'm willing to accept that there are things I get wrong regularly. Sometimes I'm accidentally right. I say the wrong thing and I'm right. Wouldn't that be weird? I mean, that happens too. This story about the pipe bomber is a great microcosm for the failing of this generational opportunity. Let's read some of this stuff. The claim that the pipe bombs were part of an inside job is a crucial element of the debunked but enduring belief among fervent Trump loyalists that the Capitol riot was not what it appeared to be, a violent effort to disrupt the lawful election of Mr. Biden, but rather a shadowy conspiracy by government and political operatives to sow chaos and discredit the Trumpist movement. That right there, from the New York Times, is a simple paragraph that sums up exactly why the pipe bomber story cannot, why the establishment, why the media, why the government, why everybody that's all involved in this stuff cannot allow a former Capitol police officer, current CIA employee to be the person. You got me? That paragraph, it's part of the debunked but enduring belief. It has to remain debunked. Because the minute that you show that Capitol police officers in 11 minutes and 7 seconds left their car that they were driving before they were even asked to drive and went out and found a pipe bomb in under 12 minutes, faster than a freaking dog could find them, and went directly to the spot the pipe bomber had been at the night before, sitting down for 77 seconds in the dark, one bush in all of Washington, D.C., of which there are thousands and thousands of bushes, and then turned around and went directly to the threat and found the pipe bomb. If that doesn't indicate the enduring belief among fervent Trump loyalists that the Capitol riot was not what it appeared to be, a shadowy conspiracy by government and political operatives, well, it doesn't take a ton of them, to be fair. And that maybe is where Bongino and where Patel and maybe some of the other sort of grifty types, what did my buddy say yesterday? I think Steve Friend said it, the grift of failure, which was a play on the title of Bongino's book. If you're going to be out there making the claim that it's this broad government conspiracy, then you are a cartoon. I'm going to tell you that it was likely a very narrow governmental conspiracy. It involves one or two very, very powerful people who have the ability to pick up a phone and people do stuff. It involves several government agencies, low-level foot soldiers that have a vested interest in seeing the op carried out. What's more likely? That a guy who has literally nothing to do with politics, has nothing to do with the government, has nothing to do with the United States Capitol Police who found the bomb in no time flat, has nothing to do with Washington, D.C., as far as we can tell, and basically doesn't even know what's going on around him. Is it more likely that that guy predicted in advance that the election would have, let's just call it, significant questioners, and there would be a controversy? Is it likely that a guy who lives in mom's basement, who has the functional ability of, let's say, a 16-year-old per mom, I think it's actually probably lower than that, he kind of responds the way that my 4-year-old does. When I ask my 4-year-old a question and he has like non sequiturs that go along with it, there's some footage that's coming out of Brian Cole Jr., who's been arrested for the pipe bomb scenario. Is it more likely that that guy, who completely absolves every governmental agency, Capitol Police, the FBI, members of Congress, the ATF, and whoever else, and maybe the CIA if they're in the mop-up crew, it doesn't mean that everybody in the CIA, the thousands of people that work there, it doesn't mean everybody in the 40,000 people at the FBI or every person in the Capitol Police, 2,000 plus people that work there. It doesn't mean they're all involved. It just means that someone from each agency in a position of authority could have abused their authority, and that seems more likely than some random dude. It seems more likely that a random dude in Woodbridge, Virginia, who lives with his mom and works at a bail bond shop and doesn't know how to drive and does a terrible job, like mastermind building pipe bombs in advance and was buying the stuff in 2019? Tom Massey on this. This is why this is all going to end up falling apart.
They say they have checks and credit cards. Even one of them was a cash purchase, so I'm not sure how they know this individual made a cash purchase of bond-making materials. The 1-inch diameter, 8-inch long pipe, the end caps that go over that, 9-volt batteries, alligator clips. They say they have evidence that he's purchased all of those things. By the way, all of those things are in my basement right now.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've purchased all of those things multiple times.
Anybody that does home improvement.
Yeah. If you run the black pipe that is used for gas lines, for instance, if you're hooking up a generator or something, I'm not saying this kid did that sort of work, but these are common materials, but they say they've got him purchasing these things. The thing is, he must he must be a national asset at this point because he predicted the election. If the motive is that he was upset about the election, so he built these bombs and placed them on J5 so they would go off on J6 and help the insurgents take over the Capitol so that they could overturn the election, which seems to be the narrative right now. He knew 2 years in advance to start buying this material because the date on these purchases, almost every purchase predates the election.
Do you see why that's a really troubling thing? We have to forget everything that we've known, including the things that these guys have said. And so the New York Times covered this in a very clean manner. For those of you who want to discount it because it's the New York Times, we should be looking at people that we might disagree with and try to see, does it poke holes in our narrative, in our own thought processes? Are they making a legitimate point that we should consider? Here's where it comes down. This is about 2/3 of the way down the story. The arrest takes place nearly 5 years after the bombs were found and defused. It raises questions about the quality of the investigation under AG Merrick B. Garland and the FBI director at the time, Christopher A. Wray, who, by the way, has not been arrested. They went after Comey. Have you noticed that none of the quote-unquote deep state, the gangster types, the government gangsters that Patel had? He got John Bolton. That's it. Is that what you voted for? One guy in a year? Oh, they must be working on it. Sure they are. As Mr. Bongino attempted a tire-shredding U-turn. That is a great phrase, by the way. Give the writers credit for writing something fun. A vocal group of activists who are staying the course lashed out. It was a more modest, if equally vehement, reprisal of the backlash over the effort by Trump appointees to quell the fervor over the Epstein investigation. You guys know where I've been on that? You know where I've been on this. Consistent. That's the words you're looking for. Kyle Seraphin, a former FBI agent who conducted surveillance on the pipe bomber case before leaving the Bureau to become a popular right-wing podcaster. There you go. They actually got me right. They didn't call me a MAGA guy, and I do love that. Thank you, New York Times. He said he did not believe that Mr. Cole had planted the bombs near Capitol Hill. Mr. Seraphin, a scorched earth critic of the current FBI director. Why is it? Is it because I'm mad at Kash Patel? No. It's because I believe that he said he was going to do what he was going to do. And of course, he hasn't. And I'm going to show you more examples of that. Kash Patel has long maintained that law enforcement officers are implicated in the placement of the pipe bomb. Quote, I think this whole thing is completely fabricated. None of it rings true to me. Mr. Seraphin said, the FBI has done this before. The model is Richard Jewell. Many of you guys know that. Representative Thomas Massie, a Kentucky Republican, has also long maintained that the pipe bombing episode was an inside job by D-State operatives and questioned whether the FBI had indeed found the right man. It goes on. You guys got it. This is why it's relevant. Because if you can go set somebody up, if you can do a complete, what do they call it? A tire shredding? Is that it? Tire shredding U-turn and never have to answer for what changed your mind. And then you get to go back to your podcast. Then we're done. Because nobody is thinking critically. What did you know? When did you know it? How did you know this wasn't going to work out? We've got tearful evidence of Dan Bongino leaving his podcast 9 months ago, which is shorter than many of you deployed to foreign nations to get shot at. And he was in tears when he left. And he'll be so glad to be back. And it'll be embarrassing for anybody that's serious and looks at it in any kind of critical way. We're going to keep going into this, and I've got more stuff. And then, of course, we've got all these other stories I want to keep touching. This is going to be obviously a little bit longer today. But I think that going through the complaint of the BS setup, because the first thing the FBI does whenever something bad happens is they go to domestic terrorism, and they got to go to a playbook case. Do they have a bunch of these sitting on the books? Yes, they do. They sure do. How do you know, Kyle? Because I've been on those surveillances. They've got a dozen of these things working all around the country at any given time. They can bust them up at any time they like, and they can just push it to a moment with that UC or that undercover, and then they write the complaint. So we're going to go through that too. Before we do, my friends at Patriot Cooler are fueling today's rage, and maybe the fact that I'm not sleeping at night and drinking some coffee out of a hot mug. This is one way to do it. This is the 16-ounce mug. It is great for a desk, not great to fit into your car's cup holders. So if you're a cup holder person, get the 19-ounce. It's more, it's taller. It's probably better if you're driving anyway. If you're a desk person like I am in the mornings here and I don't have to go anywhere for commute, maybe you work from home, the 16-ounce mug is great, looks great, feels great. It's got a great size to it. The handle's good. PatriotCoolers.com, promo code KYLE. They are our longest sponsor. They've been with us since the beginning. I really do appreciate them. Those guys reach out and they don't ask for much. And all they say is, if you're in the market for a cooler or a tumbler, if you're thinking like, hey, is a Yeti or an Igloo or whatever, a Stanley in my future, check them out first. They're a great company. They give back to veterans. They also support us, and you can save 10% with my name. It's KYLE, and that will save you 10% on any of their stuff. You buy $50 or more, which is basically go out there and, buy one for you and one for a friend, your spouse, or, give a gift, something like that. And then you're going to get that 10% off and free shipping. So double. And their big stuff all will fit into your cup holders, as you guys are pointing out. The 40 ounce, the 30 ounce, the 20 ounce, the 19 ounce, they all fit into cup holders nicely because they thought, hey, what if we made sure that they trim down at the bottom? And they do. So PatriotCoolers.com, promo code KYLE. Save yourself some money on that. All right, let's continue on. Let's continue into, this is sort of meta coverage. Okay, hold on, just before we do. Couple of different stories up here. All right, throw that one on. Dan Bongino could potentially leave in the FBI. Future sources say this is coming from the national news desk at Fox San Antonio. I'm just giving you a sampling of some of the other stuff. Again, this is the Fox story. Say he's going to make his decision in a couple of weeks. Well, what's a couple of weeks? That's next year. We're 2-3 weeks away, early next year. I've been told he's on what they call terminal leave. For those of you who've been in the military, you know what I'm talking about. That's when you burn all the leave that you've accrued and you get paid so you can technically be on the job even though you're not at the job anymore. And when you go on terminal leave, for those of you who have not served and done a terminal leave boot, essentially what you're doing is you cash out all your leave and it says, I'm working until January, but I'm taking the rest of the year off and I'm not going to be here. So I'm physically unavailable for duty and I'm not planning on coming back, but technically I still work here. That's terminal leave. We've been told that's the thing. There also is some coverage in this, and it's worth reading, and I'm not going to cover it all here, but there's some coverage of Miranda Devine's 115-page report from current and active and former FBI agents and analysts and so on who've heavily criticized these guys, and his pushback, talking about how she's deep state Divine. So they run a little bit of cover. Miranda prefers the old guard. I will tell you definitively that of all the people in the media that have a big voice and have been Dan Bongino advocates, have been promoted by Dan Bongino on his podcast and so on, Miranda Devine is probably one of the people out there with the most character. Because it does cost you something to go head-to-head against a government official and a loud voice in the conservative movement, somebody who has the friendship of Donald Trump, somebody who's got the backing of Fox News, as we found. It takes a lot to step up and say, you're wrong, and I don't care what it costs me. I mean, it doesn't cost me nearly as much. It could cost me my entire platform, and at the same time, my platform is not that big compared to these people. But Miranda Devine, she's a best-selling writer. She writes for the New York Post, and they tend to be down the middle on some things, as in they're on the left on certain issues and they're on the right on certain issues. So they kind of play that game. And she went out definitively and said what she said. And she also has definitively defended Steve Friend, right? Friend started his public sort of facing push against the FBI with Miranda Devine. So she was the benefactor. She was the, what's the right word? She's like the patron of Steve Friend's whistleblowing to the public. Just the way that Dan Bongino was the patron for mine. And the big difference is here in December of 2025, Miranda Devine still talks to Steve Friend and still has his back. And Dan Bongino has not spoken to me since last year when he decided that Julie Kelly, a bored multimillionaire Democrat housewife who gives significant money to Hillary and to Biden and to others, that woman must know more about FBI search warrants and FBI paperwork than I do as a former FBI agent. Not only have I been on more search warrants than Julie Kelly, I'm going to guess that I've been on more search warrants than Dan Bongino. And I've certainly been on more FBI search warrants, even though he's now done Secret Service and he's now in the FBI. How many search warrants has he gone on? None. Did they have the deadly force policy when they went and got John Bolton? You bet your freaking ass they did. They have the deadly force policy whenever somebody carries a gun for the FBI, including that's something that Dan Bongino now has to deal with. You think Dan Bongino now knows the FBI's deadly force policy and that it's always in effect? Just saying. All right. All of that comes to this. It has nothing to do with the fact that Kash Patel's handing a Tommy gun or a Thompson submachine gun in 45 ACP to a dude in Qatar. No, he's eager for the center stage, and they're casting aside caution when they go forward and make statements. This is another New York Times article, but I think it's truly relevant simply because what we've seen is a PR-based push. We've seen people inside the Trump administration that are desperate to get spin because for them, the PR release is the accomplishment. Let me say it a different way. Sometimes you go out and you achieve a mission, and what you did, the results speak for themselves. And sometimes you plan a mission, and announcing that you're going to do the mission is the result. The Trump administration has been that way. We cured cancer. They could put out a press release, and that would be the win. Not actually curing cancer, by the way. It would be that they said they cured cancer or they planned to cure cancer. We've stopped fentanyl from coming to the United States because we have a piece of paper that the Chinese are going to wipe their ass with. Tens of thousands of lives have been saved. We're heroes. Okay, bro. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who would rather say and not do. And what do they teach you when you were a kid? Whoever talks the most eats the least. If you have a big family, you know what I'm talking about. I've got 5 brothers and sisters combined. When you talk the most, you're not doing the work. These guys haven't done the work to be able to make the claim. So that's what's going on here with this particular article. A heinous act of violence, a faceless killer on the loose, a desperate manhunt, the FBI director with his finger poised over the post button for his social media account. This goes back to the scream crying that I heard about, which happened over Charlie Kirk's killing. He was scream crying that he didn't get the pictures that he could tweet. And I still say tweet on X because it's better than post. The circumstances collided over the weekend. Once again, finding a suspect who opened fire at Brown University in a classroom, killing 2 people, injuring 9 others. This has completely gotten lost because the guy is still wandering around. Kash Patel, the Bureau's self-promotional top official. They nailed that as well. This is New York Times. But they're still hitting it right on all cylinders here. His agents have apprehended a person of interest in a hotel room only to find out, oopsie, grabbed the wrong guy. Sorry about that. Yeah. And maybe since we had a major screw up on that, maybe we could do something else. Could we run some cover and drop a terrorism plot? Guys, we're saving you from terrorists that we're setting up. If you've listened to this program, you know the playbook. The playbook is find someone who's dumb, says something really ridiculous on social media, doesn't have enough money to complete the plot unless the feds get involved and subsidize it. Then they goad it to completion, and then they arrest you before you do anything dangerous. That's the playbook. Here it is.
The FBI now reports that it's disrupted a planned New Year's Eve terror attack in Los Angeles. 4 suspects in custody, the FBI identifying them as members of a pro-Palestine extremist group. They're suspected of planning coordinated IED attacks targeting 5 different locations in Los Angeles. But based on the reporting now, that plot has been foiled. We will wait for more out of L.A. or out of Washington, D.C.
We're going to wait for more, but we're Fox News, and we said it authoritatively. The FBI has saved you from maybe people who were in the FBI pushing along a terror plot. Feds say they foiled a New Year's Eve terror plot in Los Angeles, Southern California. They announced the arrest of 4 people. You're seeing their faces on the screen. Okay. They were organized, they were sophisticated, and extremely violent. You guys want to bet that any of those things are true? They wouldn't have gotten like a brand new agent right out of the academy to this very important terror case, would they? They wouldn't have gotten a confidential human source to like get in there and figure out what's going on from the beginning and then bring in an FBI undercover to goad it along and then bring this to the moment of crisis and announce a big tough guy Fox News win when they're in the middle of screwing up what's happening in Rhode Island. They wouldn't do that, would they? A plan to attack several Los Angeles area businesses on New Year's Eve was detailed, dangerous, and already in motion, authorities say, not anybody else. 4 people allegedly tied to an anti-government group gathered last week in the Mojave Desert to make and test several bombs, but the FBI foiled the terror plot. They had everything they needed to make an operational bomb at that location. We disrupted the terror plot before the buildings were demolished or innocent people were killed. That sounds really serious. They must have had some actual bombs, right? No, they didn't. Got it. The FBI arrested those in suspicion of plotting this attack. And so the United States attorney went out and gave a speech, and so did the FBI assistant director in charge. You'll know that as an ADIC. The ADIC of the Los Angeles field office, Akil Davis, a diversity hire that has not been changed. What were we supposed to think about? We were supposed to say Davis was around from before, so we should trust the FBI.
Do not trust the FBI.
Okay, we're not supposed to trust the FBI. Got it. Okay, sorry about that, Dan. All right, they were all tied to a radical faction of the Turtle Island Liberation Front called the Order of the Black Locust. Oh, it's so good, guys. I saw the Turtle Island Liberation Front piece. I saw that earlier. And when anyone has the word front in it, that's all you need to know is what a Green Beret told me. That's how you know it's a front. But this particular faction of the Turtle Island Liberation Front is called the Order of the Black Lotus because these people are super freaking serious danger operators. Should we just skip ahead? Should we just skip ahead and raid the complaint? Because that seems like what we do here. I think it is. Here we go. All right. Audrey Eileen Carroll, a.k.a. Asig Ginanak, and Zachary Page, a.k.a. AK, Dante Gatfield, a.k.a. Nomad, and Tina Lai, a.k.a. Kickware. These are some very strange street names, and to put them on a very serious document like this in the Central District of California is quite silly. If you're missing out on the what's going on the screen, you guys are missing out on what we do here partially, which is some visual. So check us out on Spotify. You may hear a Spotify ad right now. If you're listening and not watching, Spotify's the way to go. Go to KyleSeraphinShow.com real easy and check us out there. If you're listening on the other platforms and it's audio and video, then yeah, give us a like. Let's do it. Okay, criminal complaint by telephone or other reliable electronic means. This was sworn out over a phone. I've done this before. It's okay. The complainant, in this case, states the following is true. Best of my knowledge and belief. This is a different pony than what I've used. Ponies are the FBI's templates. That's what we call them. I don't know why they're called ponies. I actually don't. 18 USC 371 conspiracy, broadly speaking, and then 26 USC 5861 Delta, the possession of an unregistered destructive device. Complainant signature is a female named Carolyn Thompson, an FBI agent, and what you'll notice that's quite interesting about this is that name is not redacted, like the name on the pipe bomber case was redacted. Why would that be? Oh, because normally FBI agents, when they put out things that are public complaints like this, they don't in fact redact the names. And I'm going to also hone in on something else, and I've said it here before, and I'm going to say it one more time. The FBI does not do criminal complaints. By and large, FBI agents that are listening, check my math. How many criminal complaints? If you're a retired FBI agent listening to this, please put in the comments how many complaints you wrote in your career. Outside of maybe some of the bank robber cases, which could get exigent, outside of people who worked on Indian reservations, where they sometimes saw this, it is very uncommon for the FBI to use complaint, because complaint means you didn't take it to a grand jury, which is the FBI's MO. Just be aware. That was a change that happened. What it does is it allows you to move faster than grand jury, which is not the way the FBI does it. And in this case, I don't think there was actually danger there. And I think we're going to find that out, since they had an undercover and they had a CHS in there. What I think they needed was a complaint today, because we have a PR disaster right now. And therefore, we're going to do this. We're going to read a little bit more about that. Let me pull this off screen real quick. I'm going to double check something. Shooting time, Rhode Island. We're doing a fact check in real life right now. So the shooting didn't come up, of course. Thanks a lot, AI. The shooting took place, and let's see if they swore this thing out or if they just had this ready to go. December 15th, it says. Injured around 2 p.m. taken in. I'm going to double check. If you guys know in the chat, when did the shooting take place at Brown? Because I know it didn't take place yesterday. So give me the date, if you would, and the time. This happened at on December the 13th. That's why I'm saying this. At 4:33 p.m. they did this swear out. That would also be interesting to sort of see if this was a need a win. I probably should have checked that beforehand. All right, I, Carolyn Thompson, do sworn, declare, and state as follows. I'm a special agent with the JTTF. Guys, Joint Terrorism Task Force. What do we say? They're the brown shirts. They're the ones. Right? The JTTF is always the what do we need? How can we flex? Political pressure can be applied because Joint Terrorism Task Force is broad. So they're holding on to this case. I've been employed as such since July of 2024. So she started this job in July of last year, which means I think she's still on probation right now. I love that the chat is like negotiating. If you guys want to find out when the shooting took place, you got to go look it up. All right. During my career, I've participated in multiple criminal and national security investigations. Sure you have, hun. You just got there. I'm familiar with strategy, tactics, methods, tradecraft, and techniques of criminals, terrorists, and their agents. This is silly. During my employment with the FBI, I went to new agent training at Quantico like everybody does. From July to December of 2024. These are essentially the same sort of academy time. I went in June and I got out in November. So she's been doing this job for basically just less than a year in real life. And all I'm saying is they always get somebody junior on this stuff. All right. So she goes on to talk about that's all. Listen, there are really serious senior agents that have less than one paragraph, and it certainly doesn't take up a whole page and more. This is kind of a lot. This is kind of a lot for your minimal experience. Remember the deal. When you have a lot of information, you don't need to say a lot. You're like, I've been doing this since 2009. That's what you saw in the pipe bomber case. I've been working terrorist threats. Anyway, purpose of the affidavit, they identify the people. They tell you what the charges are. This is where it gets fun. This is always where it gets fun for me. The summary of probable cause. This person, Carol, that's the last name, as a member of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, TILF, November of 2025. This just went down. This is a brand newish case on this particular development. Provided a confidential human source, also known as a CHS, an 8-page handwritten document titled Operation Midnight Sun that described a bombing plot. So let's be real. TILF brought in an FBI informant who is a paid informant that does this, as far as we can tell, professionally, and got a copy of their manifesto and operation to do bombings, an 8-page handwritten document, aka Operation Midnight Sun. Do you know how super serial these people must be? Another TILF member, she wrote this with like no irony or sense of humor, known as AK, later identified as Paige, was also present during the meeting when they handed out their bombing plan to the FBI. Specifically, the plan contemplated planting backpacks with IEDs or improvised explosive devices to be simultaneously detonated at 5 locations targeting 2 U.S. companies at midnight on New Year's Eve in the Central District of California. Now, I wonder how many casualties would happen at midnight at these businesses. The handwritten plan included that it was going to use IEDs and complex pipe bombs. Listen, guys, whenever you want to go out there and make a pipe bomb, do not do a weak pipe bomb. Do not do a simple pipe bomb. Make sure that you detail for the FBI that your plan involves a complex pipe bomb. Included instructions how to make the bombs and guidance on how to avoid leaving evidence behind that could be traced back to the co-conspirators. Well, newsflash for you guys. If you buy those things, you're probably going to get caught. But if you buy them with your credit card in your own car and you drive around with your own cell phone, you probably will get away with it for 5 years. You guys blew it. You guys got beat up by a brony. You got beat by a brony out in Washington, D.C., who has nothing to do with the government. Sure. They planned to take the FBI source, discussed with the source the prospect of testing explosives in the desert. Mid-December 2025. Since the initial meeting with the bomb plot, Carol and Paige recruited other co-conspirators in the plot, including Lay and Gaffield. And the co-conspirators then took numerous steps towards executing the bomb plot. They acquired bomb-making material, traveling to a remote location in the Mojave Desert to construct and detonate test bombs. That seems like a good idea. Actually sounds like a good time. In the desert, the co-conspirators took steps to begin the construction of the devices. They unloaded bomb-making material from their car, and they began to assemble the materials on a table, constructing a tent. This is the first time I've ever seen constructive intent aside to an actual tent. Constructive intent is a tent over the bomb-making materials because the sun was bright. They wiped down the interior of the PVC pipes and began discussing the grinding precursors for explosive powder. Here's that thing about explosive powder. You know what the one thing that we were missing from the Brian Cole case was? Yeah, the explosive powder part of it. FBI agents intervened. They found you out in the desert playing with your fake bomb materials. They got you good, suckers. How do you like that? I'm not kidding. That's literally what happened. They legitimately went out and found people laying out a bunch of materials and said, come arrest us. We're in the middle of the desert. And I think I actually have a picture of that. So give me a second because I'll put that on the screen. It actually is quite entertaining. All right, here we go. This is the bomb making table. This looks like when Kyle goes to the range, but I don't do bomb stuff. I do gun stuff. And it's about the same. Here it is for you right now. You're missing out on this visual. So there they are. Look at that. They were going to do PVC pipe bombs. It's very complex. They had that. The tent is not doing a great job shading anything, and they were not particularly organized. I think these people were definitely going to get some DNA and some hair and some other stuff on there. Poor things. This does not look like a hyper-sophisticated or complex pipe bomb building situation. Let's go back to the statement. Statement of probable cause. Based on my review of law enforcement reports, conversations with other law enforcement agents, and my own knowledge, I am aware that the Turtle Island Liberation Front, or TILF, has the following thing. They want liberation through decolonization and tribal sovereignty. These people are freaking idiots. Let's just call them what they are. Turtle Island is a name used to describe North America by people who are retarded. That's what they just said. Here it is. Turtle Island is a term used by some Native Americans to describe the North American continent. I said it correctly the first time. And according to open source, they're anti-capitalist and anti-government. They're retarded. These are retarded people. And they have a retarded bomb-making setup in the middle of the desert, and they brought an FBI informant and undercover so that they could get completely busted. I'm not making this stuff up. I wish I was. It's far too funny to do it. Let's go to UCE. Should we find that? Here's a good part of it. Let's go back over here. So when you go to these documents, what you should always do is scan for the fun terms. CHS, that was right up front. Confidential human source. That's part 1 of the playbook. Now we need an undercover. So let's go to that. It's on page 10 of the complaint, which is 24 pages long, by the way. And you remember the Cole thing, the 5-year pipe bomb? The 5-year pipe bomb in Washington, D.C.? That was the most terroristic thing that happened on January 6th, 5th, whatever, right? That was like 8 or 9 pages long. This one is 24 pages. And all they didn't even get their bombs made. They just had all their stuff on the table. They got arrested for having this. It's like a messy chemical picnic. All right. The co-conspirators meet on December the 7th to further discuss the bombing plot and their intent to conduct future attacks on federal officials. Paragraph 17, based on the information from the confidential human source and FBI personnel, including an FBI undercover employee, a UCE, who was present during the meeting. I know the following. On or about the early morning of December the 7th, 2025, the CHS and the UCE, so that's 2 of the Carol, Page, and another male, so 2 of the 5. I should do that better. So UCE, CHS, both on the FBI's payroll. Carol, Page, male known as Nomad. That means 40% of this meeting was FBI people. You guys see this? This is what I'm trying to get the people on the left to see. I'm looking for the CBS. I'm looking for the ABC. I'm looking for the CNN types. I'm looking for the NBC. I want you guys to recognize that when people talk about the Whitmer setup, and it was a setup, it is what the FBI does. It doesn't matter if you work for The Intercept or you work for Fox News. Let's admit, the FBI sets up dim-witted fools who think that the United States or North America is called Turtle Island and want to put the word TILF somewhere in their handwritten bomb plan. These people are dummies, and they need a job at Burger King. They don't need to be arrested for this. They should be straightened out, and this is not a threat to America. I don't care how serious you think it is. It doesn't deserve a Fox News headline. They've interrupted a very serious plot of a couple of retards playing with PVC pipes. And also the FBI was like 40% of the meetings. I'm just telling you how stupid these things read when you look at them. They all have the same stuff. They all have the same elements, and I've been training this audience to see it. And that's why most of you guys know exactly what it is. When you see these terror plots, you're like, oh God, here we go. Playbook, there it is. This is the playbook. Carol stated that she had, quote unquote, the plan. I kid you not, they have the words in air quotes, the plan. There it is, the plan. She stated she had the plan, and she handed the plan to Garfield, 4 sheets of paper with writing on the front and back of each page. So 8 total pages, front and back, I guess. And Gatfield and the UCE, this is the undercover FBI employee, read it. That's an FBI agent. You gave the plan to an FBI agent, you dipshits. The UCE later told law enforcement, because the FBI recognizing that they're not law enforcement, that's kind of funny, that the papers contain detailed instructions on how to construct black powder pipe bombs. Something conspicuously missing from the actual pipe bomb case that went on in Washington, D.C. I'll just keep reiterating how funny this is, that we're going to have 2 pipe bomb cases back to back, and this one is actually more realistic. And more common that you'd have the FBI involved and a confidential human source. Following their review of the plans, Carroll asked whether or not some comrades would be on his team. "Are you with me, brothers?" You can imagine him saying. He responded that he would talk to them. And as discussed further, he added that the Black Locust signal chat group. Oh, there's a signal chat. Of course there is. Guys, who's in your group chat? Is it a Fed? Is it an FBI agent? I've got FBI agents in my signal chat. I got Garrett O'Boyle. I tell him he's gay every day because of it. Steve Friend, no longer that. All right, which co-conspirators are used to discuss the logistics for testing the explosive devices in the desert, among other things? And then they took the handwritten document back, stating it was the only copy of the plan, air quotes. She would make more copies if the undercover FBI agent wanted to be a part of it. These people are all like this. This is what this stuff is. If you guys don't know, this is the real threat to America. The FBI sets up a signal chat. They get actual retards, people who make terrible decisions and name themselves the Black Lotus because they think they're super serious. Oh my God, there's another part on here that's really funny too. I've scanned all this stuff. I ran this one. My heart rate was like 165 beats a minute while I was sitting on my bike reading this. It's super funny. Part D here. Page told the attendees of the meeting that they were doing things as cleanly as possible and that it was 100,000% that the FBI would be on to them. Confirmed. Yeah, you told the FBI agent in your group that there was a 100,000% chance the FBI would be on to them. How do you not laugh when you're doing this stuff? As an undercover. That actually, I would love to know what that training is. I know they make undercovers train, like they have to drink alcohol and they have to like go and remember things while they're under the influence of alcohol. And they push them all these different ways. So they do this fun training for FBI UCEs. But I have to figure that part of it is someone just sits there and does stand-up comedy and tells you like absolutely hilariously ridiculous things. And you know, somebody comes out and they've got a freaking like a penis hanging off their forehead, like a dildo or something, and you're supposed to look at them and not laugh in a really serious scenario. 100,000% chance that the FBI would be on to them. Guys, clown world. Absolute clown world. It goes on for another 12 pages of this. I'm not going to read all of it. I just want you to know how super serious it is that the feds have interrupted this New Year's Eve bombing plot that totally would have happened if not for the freaking 65 IQ people who put out this chemical picnic out in the middle of the desert and got caught. Look, I didn't even realize it. Look on the screen. There's a one of the green tea. There's an Arizona 99-cent green tea. They don't even sell them for 99 cents anymore, do they? You know what I'm talking about? The extra tall tea can. It's sitting on this crappy card table. These aren't even nice tables. My table that I set up to go to the range is way nicer. It looks like they have sunscreen and maybe some soap and maybe some cleaning solvents. Unbelievable. I'm sorry. I'm completely blown away with how dumb this is, as usual. But it tells us the problem. When you create this ridiculous scenario where you post things inaccurately, when you're thirsty, as Steve Friend said, for social media wins, then you go out and you bust goofballs like this. It's wild. It's absolutely wild that they would think that this would fly for Americans. Maybe that tells us more about us than it does about them. I'm also seeing another Intel spin op going on right now. Remember, we've talked about John Solomon before. I don't like John Solomon. John Solomon is a snake. John Solomon lied to me, specifically. He said he was going to take the story, and it was really important to us as well. Same way Dan Bongino did, by the way. Really important story to me, personally. The story that I went to Project Veritas in May of 2022, and Garrett O'Boyle got kicked out of the FBI for it. John Solomon was going to get it into the hands of Tucker Carlson. Then he was going to get it into the hands of CBS Nightly News for 3 minutes. Then he came back and told me, after they had already gone everywhere with it, they'd taken the footage and they released it to people, that they were going to do a Sean Hannity hit, of which I have zero interest in talking to Sean Hannity about anything. I don't give a shit what Sean Hannity has to say. John Solomon is a liar. That's my experience. He also has direct access to the 7th floor. He also is a propaganda mouthpiece on behalf of the Trump administration, but really specifically like Kash Patel and what he needs. So here's Real America's Voice, bringing on a former FBI unit chief, who by all accounts, his name is Bassem Youssef. I think he's an honorable guy. I don't know anything about him really. But the reading that I did, there's nothing that I have as a problem with what he was or what he did. But he hasn't been in the FBI in 20 years. And so they're bringing up the story that the FBI covered up the Clinton Russia Foundation stuff, or the Clinton Foundation donation scandal, which I think the FBI did, by the way. I think that's probably very clear. Statute of limitations has expired. Nothing will happen there. There is no justice in this world on that one. But what's really wild about this clip is Solomon's point, I think, to the low IQ people that are going to feed whatever slop comes out of a Real America's Voice or a Fox News. What I think is going on there is they're trying to point out the difference between this FBI and that FBI, despite the fact that we know there's no difference. So they always go back there and they hedge on it. They're like, oh, the evil FBI management did this and they did that and they did these things and I saw these things and it's been criminal and so and so. It's like, okay, fine. The same people still work there, buddy. Well, you can't make there's no distinction. And if you've been out of the FBI for 20 years, how in the hell do you even know what goes on there? The people that you know have all retired. So now the people that you know are like retired people who know people that are still there. You're now 2 sources at least away and you haven't vetted them. And anyway, nothing against this guy for his story, but to trot out someone with 20 years in the rear view mirror, going out and trying to act like you know some differential, or you're trying to actually point out this is the op, that there has been a massive change there. We know there hasn't. Because who in the deep state that they were crying about, and I'm using their words, deep state, government gangsters, who of them have been arrested? Who of them have cases pending? Are the Clintons going to go? Nope. Obama's? Nope. How about Clapper? How about Brennan? How about Chris Wray? Did any of these people even break the law? And the answer you're going to find out, I think, is no. They didn't. They did things they were allowed to do with the power that they had, and that has been the entire point of this podcast since the beginning. The entire point is the agency is allowed to operate in this way. It does operate in this way. There is no law that will restrict it, so you either get rid of the agency or you neuter it, and nobody in Congress seems interested in doing that. And that's where the suspendables have come in. I'm not anti-Dan, Kash, or anybody else. I'm anti-government authority that is unchecked. I am anti-unaccountable bureaucracy that goes on and does whatever the hell it thinks is the best answer. And you can't tell me there's a difference just because you changed a couple of guys in the management without doing what Dan Bongino said.
Do not trust the FBI and do not trust the Secret Service either, or any of these government entities, until there is a full change in management.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, that when I heard the news, that took me back to as far as 2009, 2010, with several events that took place, where you could see obviously that FBI at the highest levels, assistant directors, even the director himself, not just stonewalling, but actually throwing a wrench in the works to make sure that the investigation doesn't come to fruition. And I would be happy to discuss several of those examples with you. What I think is going on here that we are beginning to find out, the public is beginning to realize, is that the FBI was not politicized just during Comey's regime or during the Biden administration, but it started, I believe, as far back as the then director Mueller, right? And how this actually came to be.
Yeah. We get it. It's been politicized for a really long time. A generational opportunity presented itself. And what did Patel do? What did the current FBI director do? He did one thing. He screwed it up. He went to do some holster sniffing, and he started worshiping the tactical program in HRT. He went out there and believed that he was a politically appointed prince, and so he's a new celebrity and he flies around on a jet. And day one said, I didn't have the business acumen to get millions, so what did I do? Oh, I went out and became the FBI director so I could get a jet. That's going to keep coming back to haunt him because he said it. And it was a terrible look. And he was saying it in front of people who have private jets that know that he doesn't have the money to do that. But he really wanted it. He was covetous of it. We've had interviews of people who said, yeah, I knew him when he was a student. I knew him back in the day, and all he wanted to do was like play hockey and be famous and get a lot of money. So when I tell you that he's a holster sniffer, that he's a wannabe, that he's a Make-A-Wish director, that's what we're dealing with here. And he squandered something that was so important. And then he decided to go, oh, crap, we're looking terrible. We're looking ridiculous. How do we fix this? Let's go fire a gay guy in Los Angeles who got a pride flag from his boss and had it on the wall and then went to Quantico. Let's fire that guy. That's not political. Did you give him a warning and say, hey, man, you can't have that flag up anymore? New regime, new rules. We think that's political statements. Nope. You fired him. And you're going to lose. You're going to lose in court in the Ninth Circuit. You're going to lose in D.C. You fired a bunch of people for kneeling 5 years ago, which they never should have done, and they shouldn't be in position of management. But that's not how you get rid of people in the FBI. You move them to somewhere. You make them the commander of the broom closet. They took all the management and they promoted all the assholes that were doing the same stuff that they were doing previously. And you fired a guy because they wanted to try to shore up the management and the awareness that the public had about your jet after you went out there and did date night in a $60 million aircraft. You freaking clown. You took an incredible opportunity and you stole it from us. If people go, well, it's personal. Yeah, it's really personal to me. It's super personal because you've taken a government agency that I am going to fight against for the next 40 years of my life at least. If I'm still breathing and there's still an FBI and they're still doing this stuff, then I still have a problem with it. It doesn't go away. Whether I have a podcast, whether I'm just a guy digging a ditch and thinking about doing mean things to them. I despise what they represent right now, which is politicization. And you're hearing that it goes back to Mueller. It goes back way before that. What do you think Hoover did? He set up a political blackmail ring, whether it was for good or bad or stability of the country or better, he meant well or whatever else. It doesn't matter. They have authorities and they have capabilities that they ought not have. And they have completely shirked the responsibility of maintaining the Bill of Rights specifically. How about that Fourth Amendment that we shred because of things like FISA? Crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. And by the way, the locals who actually have to play by the rules and the state police who have to play by the rules, they're catching wind of it. And they're like, you know what? Screw you. I don't like it. Do you know how bad it's gotten? It's gotten bad enough that this little 30-second clip kept me awake last night. I've been sued by one of the people in this clip using the attorneys of another person in this clip for talking about the things that these idiots are talking about. And we're going to get into this part of the info op here, which is really, really wild to me. And probably, I don't know, maybe my attorneys won't like this, but this is legitimate wild news. A Jewish woman who's gone out and represented herself as like the quintessential Jewish mother. And she's defending Jewish people and Jewish children on Piers Morgan and others. This is Katie Miller. This is the wife of the number 2 for policy in the Trump White House, okay? This is Katie Miller, Stephen Miller's wife, has a bullshit White House podcast where they pretend like you go sit on her couch in her house. I'm assuming this is on a set. If this is their house, then they don't live in this part of the house. Because if you have children and you live in your house that looks like this, that means that you have a lot of people coming in to clean it up all the time. I don't believe it. We have a $5 million lawsuit that we've asked a judge to dismiss for being frivolous. And this woman is going to go on and joke about it. They're going to talk about this stuff. So anybody can talk about this nonsense. And if you want to tell me that you're not an information op and you're not involved in intelligence, it's really interesting that you're sitting next to a lady who used to be a spokesperson. I'm going to read her resume real quick. Actually, I'm going to put it on the screen before we go there. This is Katie Miller's resume on Legistorm, which is a pretty legitimate place. She was born in 91. Her maiden name was Katie Rose Waldman. She was in the original Trump administration. She's got an MPA from George Washington University. That's swampy. She went to Florida State, so I'm sure she was a standout student when she was younger. Just saying. I don't think whatever. There's probably smart people at Florida State. I shouldn't do that. I should do better about that. I went to Oklahoma. Who knows? In 2014, let's see. She's 10 years younger than I am. Is that right? She's 10 years younger than me. So in 14, I was like right when she graduated college. This is right out of college. She was a press assistant for the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Sorry, I was doing math in real time. I shouldn't do that on the podcast. And then Representative Paul Cook. Oh, that actually started in November of 2023. She was an intern. And then she was the press secretary for Steve Daines, Montana. Sorry, Steve Daines, my bad. November 2017 to February 19, she was a deputy press secretary at Homeland Security. Then moved into Martha McSally, Republican Arizona communication director. This is swampy as shit, people. then went to press secretary for Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. Okay? And from there, became the communications director for Vice President Mike Pence until January of 2021. Then we have a break. Maybe this was when she was having kids. I don't know what the break was. Pathway, she was a principal at a public affairs firm. Then got into the Doge thing and was a spokesperson for Elon Musk's Doge department, which is now defunct. And since February of 2025, she's been a member on the advisory board of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board. All of that stuff suggests to me intelligence. You're getting briefings, you're getting readings, you're probably getting a clearance. She's a paid propagandist, and that's a legitimate job, and you can make an honest living at it if you're a dishonest person, I think. She's a paid propagandist on the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, and she's going to sit across the table from a current law enforcement intel agency chief and his country music sensation girlfriend. And we're going to talk about intelligence stuff. And also, where's the ring? This is so astroturfed and so fake that nobody sees this and likes it. I had more liked engagements by a factor of 200% than she did, and she had 5 times or 6 times the views that I have. Why? Because everybody knows this is slop. This is the same slop Fox News is feeding you when they go, a terror plot was disrupted. And now let's talk about this fake celebrity who's in charge of the FBI and this like astroturfed chick who came out of nowhere. People said that Kyle Seraphin came out of nowhere. No, I came out of a guy named Dan Bongino begging me to come forward and speak on his podcast so the American people had a name for it. And a face, and a voice, and a personality. By the way, I'm a little prickly. I'm a prickly personality. I don't shave my beard, and I don't really care. I don't care what you think about what I have to say. If you engage me in a polite way, then we'll have a polite discussion. If you're a jerk, then you're a jerk. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Like, your opinion is irrelevant. This woman is desperate to hitch her wagon. Listen to the way they even explain it to her. She is Kash Patel's girlfriend, and she thinks that's going to make her what? Something in the country music world? She quit being a press secretary to be the next Katie Miller so that she could be the FBI director's girlfriend and run around and sing the national anthem for a living at Turning Point events. I don't know where this goes down. Anyway, this trailer, I might have to live stream this with reactions, and I'm serious about that. It's supposed to be tonight.
We are so excited to be joined by Kash and his beautiful girlfriend, Alexis. So I just want to clarify, you're not Jewish.
I'm not.
You are not from Israel.
No.
So how did we get to, are you a Mossad agent?
That's a great question.
Where's her ring? Just to clarify, how often has he traveled to see you since January 20th? Has there been one moment where you're like, you can't make this up?
There has been one moment where you say, you can't make this up. And this is the moment. The Katie Miller podcast moment is the moment when you say you cannot make this up. You cannot. You think you have to be a Jew to be in the Mossad? False. You think you have to be from Israel or go to Israel to work on behalf of an intelligence agency that's in another country? False. We covered that extensively here. The CIA doesn't go to the Sudan and say, can we find an American who's a Christian to go and represent us there? No, they go find someone who's Sudanese that will work on our behalf. You think they go into Afghanistan and they go, we can only recruit Americans to work in Afghanistan? No, they go find a freaking Afghan. Are these people retarded? And they feed the slop out, and people go oh, this is amazing. Yeah, it's so good. It's so tasty. I wonder where the ring is. Guys, did you see the body language? I'm going to play it one more time because it's that gross. I want you to key in with your eyes. If you're listening, you need to come to Spotify. If you're only listening you're missing out on an opportunity to see something. You can also check us out on YouTube and on Rumble, the video. You can watch us on X as well. So tell you what, I'll shamelessly plug myself here. Check us out on the video platforms, one of them. Spotify, Rumble, X, or YouTube. Those are all options. Locals too, I guess. You can use any of those. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you guys have notified yourself when we go live if you want to. Give us a like one way or another. We'd appreciate that. I have seen criminal defense attorneys sitting next to legit scumbags, and they sit closer than the girlfriend of Kash Patel and Kash Patel sit on this couch. Tell me I'm wrong, people. Tell me I'm wrong about this. You will find people who hate each other. A man and wife in divorce court will sit closer than this couple is sitting. And apparently they're in love and talking about a ring. Check my math.
We are so excited to be joined by Kash and his beautiful girlfriend, Alexis.
Right there. No touch.
So I just want to clarify,
She's
you're not
crossed
Jewish.
away from him.
I'm not.
You are not from Israel.
Can you say something? So I can do a. It's so tense in here. It's so tense how awkward this is. Has she moved to Washington, D.C. to be near him? No. Is there any likelihood that we're going to see a ring? No. You know how I know? Because he's 45, 46 years old. So he's got 25 years of not putting a ring on somebody's finger. You think she would say yes? Me neither. Why would she? Yuck. All right. And then all of that happens on the background of we're worried about whether or not, like they're doing that while there's an ongoing manhunt. And the people in Rhode Island are looking at the FBI and saying we're surrounded by clowns. So that's what I'm going to do for a little bit now. I'm going to cover down on the actual shooting story there a little bit and some of the news coverage. This one is great. This tells you no one trusts this FBI or that FBI or the FBI because locals have started hating them and now they can just be overt about it. Watch this.
Last night, I had never seen a local jurisdiction essentially throw the FBI under the bus, not just saying we're in charge, but saying, look, that lead that led us to the person of interest who ended up not being the person of interest essentially was run by the FBI. They said so explicitly.
Yikes. So the FBI had a bad tip. We arrested the wrong guy. We detained him for 12 hours and we smeared the name of an American veteran who worked in the Army. Oops. Did they go on and double down on that? They sure did. Here's the Attorney General saying people are getting out over their skis, not knowing what they're talking about. This is CNN.
And out front now, the Rhode Island Attorney General, Peter Nerona. And Attorney General, I appreciate your time and thank you very much. I'm sorry that we're talking in these circumstances. But obviously this manhunt now reaching it appears, an intense stage. I mean, new videos, I'll show them again now, that have just come out from police. The FBI has also released images and they are pointing at this person saying that they are looking for an individual about 5'8" that has a quote unquote stocky build. Is there anything more you can tell us about this individual?
You know, not right now, Aaron. You know, we are working hard. I just left the command post over at Providence PD before coming here. And there are a lot of detectives in the Providence Police Department working with federal agents, state police, our prosecutors, to pull every thread here to see how quickly and hopefully very quickly we can get this person identified, detained, questioned if possible. But certainly he is our primary person of interest right now. And look, sometimes these kinds of investigations, I've been a state or federal prosecutor now for nearly 30 years. Investigations like this, you know, where you don't have an image of the person right after a shooting, it takes time to build the kind of evidence picture you need to identify somebody and get them into custody. And that's what's happening now. But I'm confident we're going to get there.
So and you also, though, using the primary person of interest right now to describe this individual, if I'm making sure I'm just repeating you, what you just said there. Okay. Are you confident then at this point that at least with the information you have now, which I presume, Attorney General, is based on maybe more than the videos, that other information you may have that leads you to believe that you think this is the person responsible for the shooting?
Yeah, look, yes, is the short answer. I can't share the other evidence that we have, but we're releasing this evidence because the public can play a role here in helping us identify someone if they know them. At the same time, we're analyzing, you know, as you mentioned in your reporting, we know what kind of firearm was used. We're analyzing that ballistic evidence and evidence associated with it. So, you know, eventually we'll put together the kind of evidence we need to charge someone in this case. We believe that this person is a significant person of interest, possibly more than that. So we want to identify him and detain him very quickly if we can.
So now, if you guys weren't paying attention, there's a fat guy with a sweatshirt and a beanie. So if you know any fat guys that are 5'8" with a sweatshirt and a beanie, kind of a pot belly, that also have no face because there's a mask on it, because the retarded nature of this country allows people to walk around with their face completely covered because of a disease problem that, let's say it was legitimate. It certainly isn't anymore. And that's what's up. That's what's going on. That's where we're at. We are now at the place where some chubby dude is wandering around and he's apparently the person of interest. And I will show you some of these videos. Here you go. 1 of 4. It's a guy wandering with his hands behind his back. Do you know who does that? A lot of people who have their hand, you got a belly, or maybe he's got like body armor or something hidden underneath there, like a bag, unclear, but he's got a sweatshirt on, or Maybe it's like a bearskin hoodie or something. Looks like a hoodie. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so do you know anybody with a hoodie that's chubby? There he is. Look, that's a really good picture of him. That's him walking. Probably wondering like, hey, do you know anybody who walks across the street against the signal? So he's a jaywalking chubby guy in a hoodie. And then there's this picture, which is super useful. It's a chubby ninja. He does seem to have normal proportions, though. So these are about normal proportions for feet and legs. So that's helpful. But he's wearing this mask thing, which makes basically no identification possible. And so that's really good. And then here's another picture of him. He's got a nose. You guys know anybody with a nose? It's covered by a black mask, but he's got a nose. So there's that. Then we got the ring camera. The ring cam's really good. Also shows him walking, so we know he's ambulatory. These are essentially really critical things that we now are aware of. Amazing. Thanks, FBI. That's what we got. Now, to the credit of the Attorney General, what did he say? We know more than you. We know more stuff. So we're not going to tell you everything. That's what you'd expect. Tomorrow, I think we're going to try to get George Hill on because he was involved in the manhunt for someone in this area with the same field office the FBI has, which is the FBI's Boston field office, and he was involved in the manhunt for the bombers for the Boston Marathon. So I think that'll be interesting. What could be going on and what is not going on? What he thinks. I'd like to hear an assessment. My assessment is that this is not very good footage, and that the current folks that are in the Bureau are getting completely schlacked right now in the PR space, which is where Cash and Dan choose to do business. Here's another little funny commentary. This is also CNN. This is John Miller, who's a retired guy out of the NYPD, and I think he was a commissioner for a little while. And so he's tapping his sources, whatever sources he's got at the FBI. I'm sure he has some. Here he is talking about, we don't know what the evidence was, but they arrested the wrong guy and then they let him go. At 12 hours is a long time to be in detention. Anybody who's ever been in the military that ever did like a POW camp, if you went to SEER school, 12 hours is slow when you're locked up.
What I am told by my sources is that they ran those tests, and I don't know whether that included DNA and ballistics, but whatever tests they were able to run, comparing what they found in that search to what they found at the scene were not matches. So we go from an individual who was considered a person of interest, the subject of search warrants, both at his home in Wisconsin and his hotel here, to a person who served his country honorably in the U.S. Army in an elite unit in Washington, D.C., who is being released and must be given his presumption of innocence as we go forward.
Yeah, and to your point, Jim, picking up on some of that, as you noted, when he was pressed, they were asked specifically about some of that information. He said, look, it could be fingerprints, it could be ballistic, it could be DNA, I won't say. But there was also a specific question as to whether there were weapons found at the scene and whether they led to a person of interest. That is also a question that they would not answer. The Attorney General said, I'm not going to say, John.
So what? That's what they do. They don't tell you everything because they're trying to keep the case clean. That's what normally happens in normal murder investigations. By the way, guys, this is a local crime until proven otherwise. So the FBI is there just sort of getting in the way. They should be offering resources. Instead, they try to get out there and act like they were a part of it. Of course, they're tweeting about everything, which makes them look even more ridiculous. And, nothing for nothing. The Fox News crowds, the Megyn Kelly types, they've all gotten out there. Megyn Kelly did some bit about it where she speculated about things she doesn't know. For those of you that were trying to tag me on her show, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Megyn Kelly has not done this criminal investigation. She's talking about, what does cast mean and what does it not mean? You know what it looks like to me? It looks like the FBI is making these guys look like fools so they can kick them the hell out. Because there is a relatively reasonable contingent of people inside the Bureau. There's obviously the political management, but there's a group of people that just want to do their work. And they want to have more competent people. They had a generational opportunity to fix the FBI and they didn't do it. So maybe we could go and get the guy who's the host of In Pursuit and America's Most Wanted, who knows nothing about the case, and talk to Jesse Waters, who knows nothing about the case. This is the slop. Let's spoon feed you things. It could be targeted. I have no information. I have no information at all. I'm just going to make up stuff on television. Do you guys know how much of what you see on TV is complete crap? It's people that talk articulately, look decent, have the ability to go into a studio and fill words, and then they're going to sell you pocket catheters. Here's Fox News waiting to sell you either a pocket catheter, a gold IRA, or a reverse mortgage so you can lose your house.
It does seem like a targeted attack to me. I'm not sure if the target was the person or the university itself, just to draw fear. maybe even cancel the exams. This is a time where these finals are happening. Maybe this is a student that didn't want to take their finals and took this horrible approach to preventing that. This individual did walk around campus, and while there should be cameras everywhere, miraculously, they avoided almost all of them. So perhaps they knew exactly where those cameras were, where they could get in and around and get into that building. We know the building was unlocked, but those classrooms did require badges. There's badge readers at the entrance of those classrooms. I imagine if he'd keyed into one of those rooms, perhaps that badge reader would collect that data. And if they're not looking at that information, like I said, there's been so many blunders in this investigation so far.
I don't really know anything about the investigation. It seems targeted. It seems like they could have targeted a person or maybe the university, or it could have been a student who didn't want to do exams. And it seems like they should have gone to badge readers. These are things that I just speculate in my basement, and then I step up onto Fox News and say shit I don't even know. I have no information. The cameras, it seems like they should have had cameras, but they didn't have cameras. So you can imagine all the things that I'm imagining over there, Jesse Waters. Now, do you imagine these as well? And Jesse goes, yeah, I also wonder, was it a targeted attack? Did they target this or did they target that? Or could it be a target or could it just be a disgruntled student? It's a fat guy. It's a fat guy who's 5'8". He doesn't look like a student to me, at least not at most universities, but maybe he is. We don't know anything. What we know is what they put out, and what they put out is slop. And what Fox News did with it is additional slop. There he is. Look, that's the guy, or not the guy. That's a person of interest. No clear answer. The answer is they're doing the investigation, and you guys aren't entitled to it. And unfortunately, we've got the FBI on scene, which has not made anybody feel better. Here is some folks from my former agency from the ERT wearing these raid jackets they require them to wear now. I never, ever wore my raid jacket outside of the academy. I want you guys to understand this. I never wore an FBI raid jacket outside the academy. Not once. I have it in a box in my closet right now, and I pulled it out the other day looking for batteries. And I was like, oh, I still have this thing. It still has like creases on it from coming out of the package. I wore it at Quantico, and that was it. Here they are kicking snow.
The FBI evidence response teams will continue to do their job here on the corner right next to the engineering.
It's like a hyper-technical search.
You can see those brown paper bags. They asked where they put the evidence in. We'll continue to walk here and look for evidence.
So there they go, kicking. They got ladies kicking snow. If you're wondering, yeah, those are women agents and maybe some various different people that volunteered for ERT so they could have a field trip. And they're kicking the snow. It's a very technical search, kicking snow around. They definitely don't have any they don't have like a tool for this. They didn't want to go out there and like try to melt the snow. Nothing. They're just going to stand there and kick it with their boots, like weirdly, and keep their hands in their Air Force gloves, which are pockets. Okay. Let's do another one, because that's also fun. So here's some FBI agents and analysts, and they have gathered up. They're from the evidence response team. If you're missing the video here, there are some agents that are walking across the street. This is a technical term. We call that a gaggle fuck. And so they are gaggling across the street, and they're going to stand there, and they're going to say, over here is the bushes. Oh, here's some other ones. And they're going to do a targeted walk into the snow, but not on the whole snow. Let's fan out. Let's not fan out. Let's just look disorganized and kind of aimlessly meander around. I had Sam Shoemate say something. He said, amazing. The FBI's evidence search teams use the same tactics that the Army uses when they drop something like sensitive items on a drop zone after a parachute op. Yeah, they do. You basically just get everybody in an area, and then they sort of aimlessly wander around until somebody says Yahtzee. That's what you're seeing right here. This is not a grid search. This is not like a scientific thing. They're not trying to get rid of the snow. And what's crazy is they actually have people that are hyper competent that do this stuff for a living. And then you got whatever this is. I don't know what this is, but it looks ridiculous. To everybody on the outside is seeing it. They go, oh, is this what our tax dollars pay for? Yeah, it turns out it might be. So there's one of them, and I think I've got one more of it, and we'll show that as well, just for funsies, so you guys can see.
We're looking right now at the FBI, who is gathered there as part of the investigation. And John, at times we've seen them with actual rakes combing through some of the snow-covered ground there, some of the shrubs, some of the trees. They're obviously looking in very specific areas. Again,
they're looking in areas like grass. They're looking in areas like where they're literally turning over leaves. No leaf left unturned. They're doing the scene from Spaceballs right now, people. They might as well just be doing a comb in the desert, looking for pieces of the princess's ship that fell down. I don't want to make fun of it, but like at the same time, actual rakes, yeah, what are they looking for? They're probably looking for spent brass or looking for things that may have fallen out. Maybe they have something that's going on from video, but at the end of the day, It doesn't look organized. I've been on search warrants in drug dealers' house that look more organized, that are more dedicated than that. Usually what you do is you hit the house, you clear it, you make sure it's safe, and then you lock it out, and then you go, okay, here's what's going to happen next. 3 of you go to the backyard, do a grid search, pick the quadrants and walk through them, fine. You go in and label all the rooms, Alpha through Zulu, and then you're going to go in and I'm going to assign you guys to rooms to go search, and let's follow on. Let's go logically through the rooms. Start from left to right. You start clockwise or counterclockwise. You work your way around. Or you can just kick freaking snow around on a college campus with actual rakes, she said incredulously. Why does nobody trust it? And while we got this going on, and the Law and Order types are watching the slop of Kash Patel's girlfriend not sitting close to him on a couch, and they're going out and talking about how, oh, she's totally not an asset for something done by a person who's a legitimate information operation. Katie Miller does information ops. That's what communications, that's what PR is. That's what a press secretary is. They're spokespeople. That's an information op. That's what it is. We give you information. Doesn't mean it's disinformation or mal or miss. Just means information that we want you to have. And so what's the left doing right now? They're coming for guns. Again, as usual. But it's going to continue to ring very true because what we don't have is like actual progress being made in any meaningful way. And we don't look like we have serious people on the other side that are trying to go out there and saying, look, we've got bad operators that have access to firearms because we live in America and they're doing bad things. Where were the cops? Why did the cops not show up on time for this active shooter who had time to go run around? This wasn't like a hit and run. This wasn't a drive-by, and they find drive-bys all the time. This was at a college campus that had security cameras, and they've got video of this guy pacing around, and nobody had a gun. That seems like a bigger problem. Not enough guns. Anyway, or you could go to Chris Murphy, who's in Connecticut, and he's going to tell you that the problem are obviously your personal ownership and your exercising of your American liberties. So we got to stop it.
This is about, and we've talked about this, much more than gun violence. It is gun violence, but the laws could be stronger, but they're stronger than other places in Rhode Island.
Well, but the laws do make a difference. I mean, if you look at states like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, California that have stronger laws, we have gun violence rates, murder rates, mass shooting rates that are 2 to 3 to 4 times lower than states that have loose gun laws. And many of the weapons that are used in our states for gun crimes come to our states from those states that have an ability for criminals and people with serious mental illness to buy weapons. So what we know is that stronger laws do work. And since we passed that bill in 2022, the first bill in 30 years that strengthens the nation's gun laws, gun violence rates and mass shooting rates have come down in this country. But this is not shocking because over the last year, President Trump has been engaged in a dizzying campaign to increase violence in this country. He is restoring gun rights to felons and people who have lost their ability to buy guns. He eliminated the White House Office of Gun Violence Protection, and he has stopped funding mental health grants and community anti-gun violence grants that Republicans and Democrats supported in that 2022 bill. So he has been engaged in a pretty deliberate campaign to try to make violence more likely in this country.
Where's that violence happen? This seems like a really racist thing to say there, Chris Murphy, the whitest guy in the whitest state that I'm aware of. There's probably whiter states, but doggone it. You know that gun control is pretty inherently racist. It actually pretty aggressively favors those who can't afford to do things like deal with your regulations or handle your waiting background checks or pay for additional, state background checks on top of this and that. Additional regulation causes things to cost more. And he doesn't want people to have their rights restored as prior felons. Well, now you guys know the difference. This is where I sit. I actually agree with that policy. I think it's great. I think the Trump administration should be giving felons back their right to carry guns. Who needs a gun more than somebody who served their time and came out into the world and now has former felon friends maybe and lives in a place of danger? If you either you're a citizen and you've left your time behind in prison and you are now a productive member of society, or at least we ask you to be, or you're not. Can we start treating people who served their time and quote unquote paid their debt to society? Can we treat them like they actually paid it? Or do we have to just continue like, well, there's always a residual cost. You can't vote and you can't own a gun. That seems really racist to me. Why do I say racist? Oh, because a lot of the offenders that we're talking about, they're black. I thought that was the big thing that the Democrats were interested in. There's a lot of black people who have served time in prison. Maybe they made a mistake when they were younger. Maybe it was a really bad mistake. So either they're safe enough to be in this world or they're not. And I say that having met guys who are like had a felony conviction, and then they were doing really important stuff in our community, driving a trash truck. Before I joined the Bureau, my trash guy, who was super nice, I can't think of his name anymore, but I made his kid a box. He was doing like box steps and stuff, and he was doing lifts. So I did it in my wood shop. And he had a felony conviction, and the only job he could get was pulling trash, which was a vital service. And he was awesome at it. He would run up if I forgot my trash. He'd go up to my side yard and pull the trash out and empty it. Super nice. Paid his debt. Can we give that guy a break? He got fired for something like being a proactive trash guy. He got fired for it. And I called up the company and I screamed at him for it. I was like, how dare you take the best trash guy that I've ever had? I don't care if he's got a felony on his record. We have principles. That's what we should be. Anyway, the left doesn't. What they have is they have goals. They have operations. They have the idea that they're going to advance their cause no matter what. And some of those operations are coming to fruition right now. And we're seeing them right now. And they're these young, whatever they are. This kid looks like, talk about Dan Bongino being in the FBI for like shorter time than my friends had temporary duty. I'm fairly confident I have t-shirts that are older than this kid. I'm pretty sure I do, actually. I'm actually 100% sure. I've got t-shirts from when I was a little kid and my kids wear them now. This kid, who looks like a child to me, maybe he's in his 20s, is going to go and talk about gun violence, and he's going to assign the blame where it really belongs. Not on the fat guy with a hoodie who went out and shot people. Not on people who take a gun and do things that are illegal with them and commit a crime, which are already illegal. Nope. The problem is the gun lobby. These things are tired, but they always get a new breath of air. They go, and they blow in air into this stupid bag every single time there's one of these shootings. So the best thing that can happen is round up the shooter, find out the ideology, and let's hone in on what the actual person did. But in the absence of a real subject to go in and dig into, the media spins on its own talking points. Maybe it was a targeted attack. Maybe they didn't want to take their exams. Maybe there was a hot air balloon. Maybe it was an alien who was masquerading as an elephant that actually wore a man suit. Maybe it was an Edgar suit, Men in Black style. And then you have this kid. This is crazy stuff because this guy got on MSNBC. What does he have to say? What does he know about? What guns does he own? I just want to know. What guns do you own there? I think his name is Cam. Let's throw this on there. This will make you guys pissed off, but that's okay.
The gun lobby is constantly shifting the blame from themselves to the individuals who perpetrate the violence. This is why I was vocally opposed to the shooter from my high school getting the death penalty. It was not because I think he is a good man. It is because we blame individuals and not the systems in place that allow these things to happen. But the shooting at my high school was not solely due to one human being. This was a person who had had several reports with law enforcement saying that he had expressed violent intentions, and he was still able to legally purchase an assault rifle at 19 years old.
So you're saying the culpability goes beyond him?
I don't focus on the evil of human beings. I focus on evil in systems. And if we do not address the systems that lead to this violence, we are never going to be able to solve it. Killing the mass shooter from my high school, first of all, I don't think the state should have that power. Second of all, that is not going to fix the problem. And we love to blame it all on the individual and not the things in place that allow them to exist. But
that is an absolutely incredible little segment. From the grown-ups that are nodding along to this fucking child, excuse my language, but that this guy is a child. And he says, I don't focus on the evil in people, I focus on the evil in systems. The gun lobbies are trying to take the blame away from themselves and put it on the individual who actually did the bad act. Whoa. That is a truly leftist, insane position that holds no water to serious people. You just said the system is to blame for the guy shooting people. You put the blame on people that own inanimate objects, and you took it away. The system that allows people to own the inanimate objects. I want to just tell this guy, I have weapons and capabilities for violence in this podcast that probably exceed his own, and they are just things here that are just part of my set. Look over my shoulder right now. Right over there. That's a Smith & Wesson 686-2. in 357 Magnum with I think it's a 6-inch barrel and the original stocks. That would be known as a combat police officer's weapon in the 80s. This was something that a lot of like bike cops used to carry. It's a beautiful gun. It is an awesome trigger. Look over on the right side. That's a Glock 43 X MOS. Got a hollow sun optic on it. It's got a Shield Arms magazine well and a Shield Arms base plate on the mag. that holds 17 rounds with a threaded barrel capable of taking a suppressor, of which I have several. Right? Over this shoulder over here, you can't see it off camera, but I got a gun belt here. It's a Texas gun belt. It's got cartridge loops, and there's a 44 mag in there from the 70s, single action army, made by Interstate Arms. It's called the Virginia Dragoon. And I've got 44 mag and 44 special. I've got more rounds and capabilities in this room, not to mention the freaking Tomahawk and the World War II bayonet up there. We've got more weapon systems in this office than I imagine this kid has ever even touched with his soft, effeminate little hands. And his answer is, the system is where the evil lives, not in the heart of men. That is a truly incredible, revealing statement. And you watched grown-ups on MSNBC nod along like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the systems are the things that are evil. And in the same sort of vein, at the same moment, you've got people like Chris Murphy out there decrying that they are giving gun rights back to felons. Why? The felons are just people. And apparently they're people who have served their debt and now they're in there. They're back in society. There's a really dangerous guy running for Senate right now, and this is another MSNBC thing, and they love this guy. This guy is James Tallarico, I think is how you say his name. James Tallarico is running against Jasmine Crockett for Senate. None of them should have any chance at all of winning. He's like a Beto O'Rourke that's a little bit less cringy, and he's more dangerous because of it. But state rep Democrat James Tallarico has the following kind of things to say. He's also got a problem with thoughts and prayers. They always couch themselves, they couch themselves in the way that reasonable people talk, saying the most unreasonable, wild shit you've ever heard in your life. And in this particular clip, what you're going to see is, this is the tool that I would actually say the devil is very good at using. Attempting to use scripture, playing on Christian empathy, trying to act like the thing that I want is like you and what I think is a higher order. Except everything that I do leads to death, murder, destruction, and mass destruction of your culture and of your country. This is how people vote for socialism. This is how people vote for what the communists did. Because it sounds super nice. Everybody should get a fair chance and we should take real action. This is the danger we're in at this moment, I think, that these people are going to have like a real space to operate.
I frankly am tired of the thoughts and prayers rhetoric from our leaders here in Texas and in our nation's capital. I believe in the power of prayer. I'm
going to also hone in. He believes in the power of prayer. But when someone says but in a statement like this, where they're making a political, argument, I would like you to consider that everything before the but can be thrown away because it's been discarded.
I believe prayer changes lives. I believe prayer changes the world. But there is something profoundly cynical. I believe prayer changes the world. But there is something profoundly cynical about asking God to solve a problem that we're not willing to solve ourselves.
Assuming that you can solve the nature of the evil in men's heart is a wildly prideful statement. And this is where having a faith background that's real, and you understand that if you are in fact a Christian, you know that at the end of the day, the most perfect man to walk the earth still suffered at the hands of violent people, and that was all by design, and that the most perfect man in the world loses, and the people that went to prepare his way lost their heads. I've been reflecting a lot on John the Baptist of late. I feel like the time that we're living in right now, more of us feel akin to the experience of John the Baptist when you're crying, you're a voice in the desert. And the end result of that is that they cut your head off because it's inappropriate. I hope I don't have my head cut off, but my wife worries about that kind of thing on a regular basis. That's why I'm armed to the teeth. I'm going to continue on with this, but I want you to reflect on the fact that he is masquerading, putting on compassion and this sort of Christian empathy, and he's doing it for the exact opposite reason. He's saying things that are so prideful that you could not ever seriously take this guy if he was going to go out there and try to make this argument. It's real simple. It's like, you think that you can change the evil or the darkness in the hearts of men? Tell me more, Satan.
God moves and works through us. God has no other hands but our hands. We prayed, and God sent moms from both political parties to advocate in the halls of power for gun safety.
We prayed, and God sent lawmakers with common sense gun safety proposals like universal background checks, red flag laws, closing the gun show loophole. As you know, Rev, Scripture reminds us that faith without works is dead. And
that's pretty funny. Faith without works is dead was one of the big arguments between the Protestant and the Catholic Church. Just so you guys know, if you guys don't know the historical origin there, that's a very funny argument to be making, because I'm sure that he tries to appeal to an evangelical base, because he sounds and he looks like a slimy evangelical kind of con man. He looks like a mega church preacher, and he's sitting there with the slimiest person of all. Rev. All right, I'm going to finish this out. There's a few more seconds.
So the time for thoughts and prayers is over. It's time for us to act.
Yeah, bro. The action is take responsibility for yourself in this world. That was the snakiest of snake oils, just so we're on the same page. I don't think that's Reverend Al Sharpton that's on the screen. For those of you who can't hear, or you can't, because you're not watching, you can't see who he's talking to. He's talking to the skeleton that used to be the Reverend Al Sharpton that's sitting there. It's basically skin stretched over, like he's taken over the Nancy Pelosi skin demon sort of look, where they can no longer maintain the chassis. Really wild. So that's the danger of the time that we're in right now, as far as I can tell. We're in a time when all of this stuff could come to really bite us in the butt, because you need to give people something to churn on. And they're going to churn on something. So they're going to churn on the anti-gun message, which is nonsense and antithetical to American liberty. And by the way, it's none of your damn business. It doesn't matter if you believe in it or don't believe in it. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter, because you don't get a vote on that. That's what the Constitution says for anybody who cares about it. And they don't, right up until the point when they actually try to act like the Constitution matters. These people always act like some rights are second class. And here's how I know it doesn't matter. This happened in Australia. These are bolt action, straight pull rifles and shotguns. So you can have all the tough gun laws in the world. You can have a buyback. You can have your government say that you can't have them. Guess what? People will do evil things. They'll either go out and they'll, where's my, I've got a good picture. I know I have it. 1, 2, 3. Where's the picture? They'll go build a freaking pipe bomb with FBI agents in the desert, or they'll go and they'll shoot people with straight pull rifles. Dang. Those are semi-automatic, and they're still super functional. They still kill people dead. Yep, time to reload. Still good. It turns out almost every weapon system that you can think of, whether it's the stuff that's sitting behind me, these used to be considered combat arms. This Smith & Wesson back here, this 357, that was considered a combat handgun. That 44 mag that I've got up there was a backup gun for guys in the cavalry. It's designed after the Dragoons guns, right? Single action or single shot and bolt action rifles. Yeah, they've all been used in warfare very effectively to end a lot of lives. So at the end of the day, you can't make the argument that either there's like some guns that are good guns and some guns that are bad guns. Either we don't get to have them because we're not entitled to, and we live in a society where that's not a thing, or we live in a free society and there's risks. And right now we're seeing people like they have all the ammunition they want to go push it out there. And we're not seeing anything that pushes back saying we're effective. We have the ability to solve these problems. And yes, it's awful. But if there was an armed security guard, or if there was a Kyle Seraphin sitting in that room, then maybe people don't get shot. I'm going to show you last the footage of some of these kids that were sitting there as the police came in and pulled them out. They're doing the run, hide, fight thing. Run, hide, fight is the last thing. Wouldn't it be nice if you had some veterans that said, I'm willing to sacrifice my life so the people around me can live? Because some of us already made that decision. A lot of us have. Some of you have. Some of you have friends who have done it for you. And you're walking around carrying that burden. And you know that you may have to pay it forward one day, right? That's the reason why you choose to be a carrier. That's why you go out there and you said, I am a man. My job is to sacrifice my life for myself, my community, my family, whatever needs to be done. I'll do it. Or you could just hide like this. There are cops banging on the door. There's students filming each other because their instinct is to film and not do things that are sensible. Okay, cops are going to come in and they're going to take the room.
Police! Promise, police! Hands! Everybody's hands!
Man, this looks super dangerous for the cops coming in. They must assume that nothing bad is happening.
Get your hands. Just keep your hands up for us. Obviously, there's something going on. We're here to help you. Just listen to what we have to say, okay? All right, breathe. Anybody hurt? No? All right, just listen to our commands. We will get you out of here safely. Is this it? Is this the group?
You have your bags, your phones. Go grab it now. Quickly.
Go, quick, go.
In orderly, fast. Let's go.
Got it.
Good job.
So there you go. I mean, that's the alternative. How do they not find the actual guy in all this stuff? I don't know the answer, but I know that people don't trust the agency that are doing it. I know the locals are upset about it, and I know that the guy that's out there so thirsty for wins that he's going to go out and do a freaking podcast with his girlfriend sitting on a couch. That ain't it. That's not what people voted for. So you're going to lose all of it. That's the time that we're in right now. And again, it's dangerous for liberty. It's dangerous for people who actually care. So let's shut it down right there. I'll just remind you guys, you can watch the program over at KyleSeraphinShow.com, KyleSeraphinShow.com. That's the Spotify link. Give it a try. Everybody who likes it, or everybody who tries it likes it. Or as my friend used to say when I was younger, everybody who tries it says, oh, that is so nice. This is the locals. You can find us and you can support us at KyleSeraphin.com. Some neat stuff coming out there. I need to go to the range and do some shooting, so we're going to do that and show you guys a little bit of it. If you want to join the program, you want to join the army over there on the YouTube that it continues to grow, give us a like. Make sure you're subscribed. I continue to see this thing grow every single day. So share it with a friend if you're a YouTuber and you like that. We're there. We're growing. We're not being squished. It's totally organic, though. It's a very slow and methodical curve. But I am appreciative for all of you that are watching on there and sharing it around with the friends. And a whole new audience is opened up to us since Rumble seems pretty restricted. God bless all of you guys. I'll have you a fun palate cleanse later, but this is a long enough show at this moment. So go protect yourselves, protect your family, give everybody you love a hug. Let them know what matters, right? And then stop eating the slop if you can. Recognize the slop first. You know it smells bad, so just stop eating it. God bless you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.